The afternoon felt ordinary enough when it started. I was standing in my father's backyard holding my daughter, listening to the low murmur of conversations, the clink of glasses, the soft music drifting from a portable speaker near the patio. Someone had arranged pink flowers along the fence. The grass had been freshly cut. It smelled faintly like citrus cleaner and summer heat. My father lifted his champagne glass. His hand caught the light as he raised it, steady, practiced. He smiled the way he always does when he thinks he is saying the right thing. The crowd quieted on instinct. He cleared his throat and began talking about becoming a grandfather. He talked about waiting his whole life for this moment, about legacy, about dreams finally coming true. People nodded. A few dabbed their eyes. I looked down at the baby in my arms. My daughter was 7 months old. Her head rested against my chest, warm and heavy. Her fingers curled into the fabric of my dress. She had already made him a grandfather. He had never met her. My name is Olivia. I was 33 at the time. I stood there in my sister's backyard, in a quiet Connecticut neighborhood where every lawn looked the same, and every house had matching shutters. And I listened to my father give a speech I had imagined months earlier, just not like this. My husband Matteo stood close enough that our arms touched. I could feel the tension in him even though he did not move. His jaw was tight. He had seen this pattern for years. He knew when I went quiet, it meant something inside me was carefully locking into place. My sister stood a few steps away, one hand resting on her pregnant stomach, the other holding a glass she was not drinking from. She looked radiant in a way that felt deliberate. Every detail of her appearance had been chosen to be noticed. Every smile landed at the right angle. She glanced at me, just briefly. There was a small smile there. Not warm, not accidental. My father continued speaking. He talked about toys he had already bought, a crib he had set up in his house, books waiting on a shelf. Each word landed gently on everyone else. Each word felt heavier in my arms. When he finished, there was applause, the kind that comes easily when no one feels uncomfortable yet. Then he turned toward me. He smiled the way he used to when I was a child and he thought he was being playful. He raised his glass again, this time in my direction, and asked when it would be my turn to make him a grandfather. The yard went completely still. Even the music felt too loud all of a sudden. Matteo's hand found mine. He did not squeeze. He just held it, steady. My daughter made a small sound then, a soft, wet raspberry followed by a giggle. A few drops of strained carrots landed on the front of my dress. Someone laughed nervously. I did not. I had spent most of my life being quiet in moments like that, smiling, redirecting, letting things pass because it seemed easier than explaining why they hurt. But holding my daughter, feeling the weight of her against me, something shifted. I did not raise my voice. I did not step forward. I did not say anything dramatic. I just spoke. I said that his turn had already happened, 7 months ago, that he had been invited to the hospital, to the welcome home dinner, to her baptism, that the invitations had been sent. I stopped there. I did not accuse anyone yet. I let the silence work. My sister moved immediately. She always did. She laughed lightly and said I was confused, that pregnancy had been stressful for me, that I had never sent anything. She said it kindly, the way people do when they want to sound concerned instead of defensive. My father looked between us. His glass tilted slightly. Champagne spilled onto his shoes. That was when I realized something important. He truly did not know, and that meant someone had worked very hard to keep it that way. I looked down at my daughter again. Her fingers were wrapped around my thumb, trusting, unaware. There were things in my bag that afternoon. Not dramatic things, not threats, just paper, screenshots, dates, a few videos saved quietly on my phone. I had not planned to use them that day, but I had brought them anyway, and I was finally ready to stop being silent. I waited. The yard stayed quiet. That was enough for now. After my sister spoke, people started shifting again. Plates were picked up. Someone refilled a drink. The moment tried to slide back into normal. I did not help it. I stayed where I was, rocking my daughter gently, letting the noise return without filling it myself. I had learned over time that silence unsettles people more than arguing ever could. My father looked at me again, slower this time. Not annoyed, not angry, just confused in a way that felt unfamiliar to him. That look took me back. Growing up, my father was not cruel. That matters to say. He was attentive when I was little. He taught me how to ride a bike in the empty school parking lot behind our house. He stayed up late helping me with science projects. He called me his girl. His words, not mine. Then my sister was born. I was 5, old enough to notice how attention shifts without anyone announcing it. She needed more help, more reassurance, more praise. That was the explanation I heard again and again. And I accepted it because it sounded reasonable. When she turned 16, she was given a car. I was given a speech about independence. When she went to college, it was paid for. When I went, I signed loan papers in an office that smelled like toner and coffee. When she planned her wedding, my father took over the guest list and the budget. When Mateo and I married, we borrowed folding chairs and cooked food ourselves. My father called it simple. He meant it kindly, I think. None of that felt unforgivable. It was uneven, but it was familiar. I learned how to live inside that imbalance. What I did not see at first was how carefully my sister learned to use it. When I became pregnant, I told her early. We were sitting at a small restaurant she liked, one of those places where the portions are tiny and the plates are heavy. I remember placing my hand over my stomach, even though there was nothing to see yet. I was nervous, but happy. She reacted exactly the way someone should. She hugged me. She said all the right things. She offered to tell our father herself, said she knew how to make it special. I let her. After that, things became strangely quiet. Family dinners happened without me. Plans changed. Messages came late or not at all. When I asked, I was told I must have forgotten. That pregnancy brain does that to people. I believed it longer than I should have. My baby shower was postponed more than once. There were scheduling conflicts, emergencies, people traveling. My sister handled everything, always with concern, always apologizing, always promising she would fix it. Mateo noticed before I did. He pointed out that my father never responded directly to my messages anymore, that invitations seemed to disappear, that information I shared somehow never landed where it was supposed to. I told him not to assume the worst. I was wrong. The day everything finally came into focus was ordinary. Too ordinary to feel dramatic at the time. I stopped by my sister's house unannounced after a pediatric appointment. She was not home. Her housekeeper let me wait inside. I sat in the office, holding my daughter, listening to the hum of the air conditioning. The trash bin was full, papers visible on top. I meant to push them down. Instead, I saw an envelope, then another. Invitations, photos, hospital announcements, all unopened, all thrown away. I did not cry. I did not yell. I took my phone out and documented everything. Each piece, each date. That was when I stopped guessing. After that, I moved slowly. I saved messages. I asked questions carefully. I listened more than I spoke. I learned about jewelry that had belonged to my grandmother, about recipes, about stories my father believed that I had never told. None of it happened loudly. That is the part people misunderstand later. It happened quietly, over time, through systems and habits and assumptions. Standing in that backyard now, holding my daughter while my sister smiled for the crowd, I understood something clearly. This was not about one speech. This was about years of small decisions stacking on top of each other until someone's existence could be erased without anyone noticing. My father was still holding his glass. He had not taken another sip. I watched him glance at my daughter again. He did not reach for her yet. I let him sit with that. Then I reached into my bag. Not quickly, not dramatically, just enough to feel the edge of paper under my fingers, and I waited for the next moment to arrive. I did not pull anything out of my bag right away. That was important. People expect confrontation to look a certain way. Raised voices, fast movements, a rush to prove something. I had learned that if you move too quickly, everyone stops listening and starts choosing sides. So I stayed still. My father finally spoke. He asked what invitations I meant. His voice was careful, almost formal, the way he sounds when he does not want to be embarrassed in public. I answered him the same way. I said I had copies, not originals, copies. That distinction mattered. I reached into my bag and took out a thin folder. Nothing bulky, no labels, just paper clipped together. I handed it to him, not across the yard but directly, close enough that only he could see what was inside. He opened it slowly. The first page was the hospital photo. Not sentimental, clinical. Me in a chair, my daughter in my arms. A whiteboard behind us with the date and time written by a nurse. He looked at it longer than I expected. The second page was an invitation. The third was another. The fourth was a screenshot of a message confirming delivery. I did not explain any of it. I did not look at my sister. I watched my father. He did not raise his voice. He did not accuse anyone. He simply asked one question, quietly, to no one in particular. Why was this not given to me? My sister answered immediately. She always filled silence fast. She said she had never seen those before, that I must be confused, that it was probably a misunderstanding. Her tone was light, reassuring, almost gentle. I reached back into my bag. This time I took out my phone. I did not unlock it right away. I held it face down and spoke calmly. I said I did not want to argue. I said I had spent months double-checking myself before speaking publicly. I said I had kept records because I was told, more than once, that my memory could not be trusted. That landed. People shifted again. Someone set their glass down. Someone else stopped filming. Then I turned my phone over and showed my father a short video. It was less than 30 seconds long. Doorbell footage, a familiar angle. My sister's voice, clear, saying my father did not need to know yet, that there was time, that she would handle it. I did not play it loudly. I handed him the phone. He watched it once, then again. He did not hand it back right away. That was the first moment I felt the balance shift. Not dramatically, not explosively, just a quiet realignment of weight. My sister's face changed. Not panic, calculation. She started talking faster, explaining context, saying things were taken out of sequence. I said nothing. I let the video sit where it was. I had learned something over the months I spent collecting information. People who manipulate rely on speed, on confusion, on overwhelming others with explanations. I was not going to compete with that. My father finally looked up. He asked if there was more. I nodded. I did not list it. I did not summarize. I handed him another page. A simple timeline. Dates, invitations sent, messages unanswered, events I attended alone. No emotion, just order. That was when my sister stopped talking. She crossed her arms. Her smile disappeared. Around us, the party had thinned without anyone announcing it. Conversations drifted farther away. People pretended to check messages, pretended not to listen. But they were listening. My father closed the folder. He did not say anything yet. He asked me to sit down. So I did. I adjusted my daughter on my lap. She rested her head against my shoulder, calm, unaware of the shift happening around her. My father sat across from me. My sister remained standing. For the first time in years, the positions felt accurate. I waited. There were still things I had not shown him. There was still time. My father did not rush. That surprised me more than anything else that afternoon. He sat with the folder closed in front of him, his hands resting flat on the table, as if he needed the physical weight of it to keep himself grounded. He did not look at my sister. He did not look at me. He stared at the wood grain like it might offer instructions. I let him. I had learned over time that when someone finally starts processing the truth, interruption only delays it. After a minute, he asked a question. Not emotional, practical. He asked how long this had been happening. I answered carefully. I said I did not know the exact beginning, but I could show him when I became certain. I reached into my bag again and pulled out a second folder, thicker than the first, but still tidy. This one had tabs. That was intentional. I had organized everything in a way that made sense to me. Dates, categories, proof that did not depend on my feelings. I slid it across the table. He opened it slowly. The first section was labeled Mail. Inside were screenshots from a neighbor's camera, timestamps, days of the week, a pattern that was impossible to dismiss as coincidence. The next section was labeled Messages, printed emails, text confirmations, gaps where responses should have been. The third section was labeled Assets. He paused there. He asked what that meant. I told him calmly that after my grandmother passed, there had been items placed in my sister's care for safekeeping. Jewelry, written recipes, things that were meant to stay in the family. I said nothing about intent. I let the listings speak. Printed resale pages, item descriptions, prices, dates posted. My father's breathing changed then. Not loud, just different. My sister tried to interrupt. She said this was private, that it did not belong at a party. I agreed with her. I said I had not planned to speak that day, that I had brought the folders only because I had learned the cost of being unprepared. That quieted her. My father asked if there was anything else. I paused before answering. This was the part that required precision. I told him there was a pattern, that it followed steps. I said it like a list, because that was how I had learned to understand it. Step 1 was control of information, deciding who knew what and when. Step 2 was isolation, creating distance without appearing hostile. Step 3 was replacement, filling the space with a more convenient version of events. I did not say her name during that explanation. I did not need to. My father closed the second folder. He leaned back in his chair. Around us, the party had effectively stopped. People were still present, but no one was pretending anymore. Phones were out, though not pointed openly. Conversations were whispers. My daughter shifted in my arms. She made a small sound and reached toward my father's sleeve. Her fingers brushed the fabric. He noticed. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he asked me if I would mind if he held her. I nodded and stood carefully, transferring her into his arms. He held her awkwardly at first, then adjusted, like muscle memory waking up late. She studied his face. Then she smiled. The expression that crossed his face was not joy. It was grief, clean and sudden. My sister took a step forward. She said this was enough, that things had gone too far. My father did not respond to her. He asked me one final question before speaking to anyone else. He asked if I had shared any of this publicly. I said no. That was the truth. He nodded once. Then he said we would finish this properly. Not there. Not like this. He stood up slowly, still holding my daughter, and told everyone the party was over, that there would be follow-up conversations, that he needed time. No explanations, no debate. People began to leave. Quietly. Quickly. My sister stood frozen, her expression unreadable. Mateo came to my side. My father handed my daughter back to me with care. He did not let go immediately. He said we would talk soon. Then he walked inside his house alone. I did not follow. I did not chase clarity. I gathered my things, thanked no one, and left. That night, after my daughter was asleep, my phone lit up with a message from my father. It was only 4 words. We need to talk. I put the phone face down. Then I waited. We met 3 days later. Not at his house, not at mine. He chose a quiet conference room at his attorney's office, the kind with neutral walls and no windows. A place designed for facts, not emotions. I arrived early with Mateo. We did not rehearse anything on the drive over. There was nothing left to prepare. Everything we needed was already organized. My father arrived alone. My sister was already there. She sat closest to him, angled slightly toward the door, as if positioning still mattered. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap. Her face was composed, calm, the version she used when she wanted to look reasonable. No one raised their voice. That was the most important part. My father started the meeting himself. He said he was not there to argue or assign blame emotionally. He said he wanted clarity. He said he wanted a timeline. He looked at me and asked me to begin. So I did. I did not tell a story. I read dates. I read delivery confirmations, invitation print orders, phone records. I placed each document on the table as I referenced it, one at a time. No stacking, no rushing. When I finished, I stopped. My father turned to my sister and asked her to respond to the documents, not to me. That distinction mattered more than anything else. She tried to explain context again. Intent, stress, timing. She said she was trying to protect everyone, that she thought it was better to wait, that she never meant for things to go this far. He asked her one question. At what point did you plan to tell me? She did not answer right away. Silence filled the room. Not awkward, heavy. Then she said she was waiting for the right moment. He asked how she defined that. She did not. He nodded once and moved on. Next came the assets. The attorney opened the folder my father had brought. He confirmed values, ownership, dates of sale. The room shifted again, this time legally, not emotionally. My sister tried to interrupt. The attorney did not let her. Facts have that effect. Then came the messages, the impersonation, the false statements made to my workplace, the pattern of interference. My father did not react outwardly. He listened the way he used to listen to briefings when I was younger. Still, focused, absorbing. When everything was on the table, he spoke. He said he would not debate intent. He said the outcomes were clear. He said trust was not a feeling, but a function of behavior. He said boundaries would be set immediately. My sister cried then. Real tears this time. She apologized. She said she felt invisible growing up. She said she had been afraid of losing him. He told her fear does not justify control. He told her she would no longer manage information in the family, that all communication would go through neutral channels, that legal counsel would handle restitution, that he would be revising his estate plan. He did not look at me when he said that. He looked at the table. When the meeting ended, he asked me to stay behind. My sister left without looking at me. The door closed. My father sat back down. He said he was sorry. Not broadly, specifically. He named moments he had missed, invitations he had ignored, assumptions he had accepted without question. He asked if he could start again. I told him yes, with conditions. I said honesty would be non-negotiable. Access would be direct. No intermediaries, no gatekeepers. He agreed. We stood up at the same time. There was no hug. That would come later, or not at all. What mattered was that the structure had changed. Outside, the air felt different, cooler, lighter. I held my daughter close and walked to the car. Behind us, systems were already moving. Consequences were no longer emotional, they were procedural. The resolution did not arrive all at once. It came in documents, emails, and quiet confirmations. Within a week, my father's attorney sent a formal summary of actions taken. The jewelry listings were traced and flagged. Sellers were contacted. Some pieces were already gone, but enough remained to establish value and intent. Restitution was calculated, not estimated, calculated. My sister did not contest it. She could not. The recipes were next. Original handwritten cards were authenticated, dates compared, digital posts archived. The catering contracts that had been redirected were reviewed by a third party. Clients were contacted directly and told the truth without commentary. Some walked away. Some apologized. A few asked if I would consider working with them again. I said I would think about it. That mattered to me. Choice returning slowly. At work, the situation corrected itself in a way that felt almost anticlimactic. Human Resources reviewed the communication trail. An internal note was issued. My promotion was not retroactively granted, but my file was cleared. The assumptions attached to my name were removed. That was enough. My father started showing up. Not grand gestures, just consistency. He called directly instead of sending messages through anyone else. He asked before visiting. He listened without interrupting. The first time he came to my house, he arrived early and stood awkwardly in the doorway, unsure of where to put his shoes. He held my daughter every time. She learned his face quickly. Babies do not carry old narratives. She responded to presence, not apologies. My sister faded. Not disappeared, just reduced. She moved out of her house. Her online presence went quiet. Invitations stopped coming, not as punishment, as consequence. We did not celebrate that. It was simply what followed. One afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table sorting papers while my daughter napped. Bills, medical forms, a small stack of recovered items wrapped carefully in tissue. I labeled each envelope and placed them into a folder that would stay with me. Order felt good. That evening, my father texted a photo. A simple bookshelf he had assembled in his living room. Children's books lined up neatly. He asked which ones were appropriate for her age. I replied with 3 titles, nothing else. Later, after the house was quiet again, I made tea and stood by the window. The streetlight outside hummed softly. The world felt steady. The truth had not created chaos. It had created structure. And structure, I had learned, is what safety actually looks like. End of part 6. Say, continue, next part, when you're ready. Life settled into a new rhythm after that. Not exciting, not dramatic, just steady. Most mornings now begin the same way. I make coffee. I pack a small bag with snacks and a spare outfit. My daughter sits on the kitchen floor turning the pages of the same board book she insists on reading every day. The house smells like toast and soap. The windows let in enough light to remind me what time it is. My father comes by twice a week, always on time, always after texting first. He kneels down to greet her at eye level. He listens when she babbles. He lets her decide how long she wants to be held. No speeches. No promises he cannot keep. Just presence. We talk about normal things now. Grocery prices, weather, books he is reading. He does not ask to make up for lost time. He just uses the time that exists, that matters. The jewelry is stored properly, documented, insured, waiting. The recipes are back where they belong, copied carefully and shared with intention. I started taking small catering jobs again, slowly, one event at a time. I say no more than I say yes. My sister remains distant. That boundary is firm but calm. There are no confrontations left to have, no explanations owed. What needed to be said was already documented and addressed through proper channels. I do not think about her often. That is how I know I am at peace. Sometimes when I am folding laundry or organizing files, I think about how easily this could have gone differently if I had stayed quiet. If I had chosen comfort over clarity. If I had kept assuming I was overreacting. I was not. I was paying attention. A few weeks ago, a neighbor asked how I learned to keep records so carefully. I told her I did not plan to. I told her it came from needing to understand what was real. She nodded and said she might need help with something similar someday. I told her she could call me, not because I enjoy situations like this, but because no one should have to navigate them alone. If you stayed with me through this story, thank you. If it reminded you of something in your own life, take your time with that. Order and clarity are not rushed. If you would like to support this channel, you can gently tap like and subscribe. It helps more than you might think. Let me know in the comments which city you are watching from and what time it is there. I read those, and they matter to me. 2 more stories will appear next. Both quiet, both real. both worth your time.